Hello and welcome chez Jean-Michel Grosjeu. This is the fourth episode in my series of videos covering the full rule set of Magic Realm, the 40-year-old masterpiece of fantasy gaming from Richard Hamblen, published by the Avalon Hill Game Company. And thanks to my previous 3 videos, you can now deal with monsters. You can hunt them or flee from them if they are too tough for you. You can sneak into their lairs and steal their treasures. But this way of tackling the Magic Realm is only suitable for a few adventurers, the sturdy ones, the strong fellows. But other characters are a bit more subtle and rely more on their social abilities. Social abilities with monsters? No, of course. But there are not only monsters on these lands. There are also people that live here, they were born here, the native people of the Magic Realm. Native people, and mainly native fighters, are living in dwellings. There are 6 dwellings in the game: the chapel, the house, the inn, the guardhouse, and the small and large campfires. Each dwelling stands in a clearing, and so all natives in the game can be found in these 6 clearings. The 4 first dwellings are on the game board from the beginning of the game, on valley tiles and always in the clearings with the number 5. Each dwelling matches a yellow valley cheat, Dank V for the chapel, Smoke V for the house, Stink V for the inn, and Ruins V for the guardhouse. The 2 campfires are not on the board at start and must be found by the players. The small campfire appears on clearing number 5 on the wood tile where the Smoke W cheat is, and the large campfire with the Stink W cheat. So keep in mind that valley tiles are safe places where you'll get from the start the 4 main dwellings. Wood tiles are not so dangerous, with 3 tiles out of 5 with possible wandering monsters and 2 safe tiles where you'll find the 2 campfires. At the end of any player's daylight, if his tile's yellow cheat is Smoke W or Stink W, the small or the large campfire appears on clearing 5 and stays there until the end of the game. So, at start, 4 dwellings are already on the map. I show that on this screen with a red borderline. And from the beginning of the game, natives are there also, on these dwellings that are their home. The order at the chapel, the soldiers at the house, the rogues at the inn, and the guards at the guardhouse. There are several natives in each faction, and so at the beginning of the game, the map looks like something like that. In the valley, a character can go to the existing dwellings and meet native factions, but they will have to explore the woods to find the 2 missing dwellings and meet the remaining factions. There are 9 native factions in total. The Order, the Soldiers, the Rogues and the Guards you already know, but also the Patrol, the Company, the Woodfolk, the Lancers and the Bashkars. And while the first 4 starting native factions stay in well-known dwellings, players don't know exactly where the 5 other factions will appear. Each faction is linked to several dwellings where they can be found. The Patrol can be found in either of the 4 basic dwellings. In fact, they are patrolling and can be met along their patrol path. The Company can be met at the inn or at the large campfire. The Woodfolk at the house or at the small campfire. The Lancers at the chapel or at any one of the campfires. And finally, the Bashkars can be met at the campfires. So, some factions like the Bashkars can be found in 2 possible dwellings, while the Patrol can be found in 4 dwellings. And the other ways, 3 different factions can be met in each dwelling, but the guardhouse where only 2 factions can appear. Okay, this is what we can call the geography of native factions. Now, how to meet them? And first, how do they appear on the map? In fact, they appear a bit like monsters. At the beginning of the game, 4 factions are already on the map. The remaining 5 are on their dedicated boxes on the setup card. And they appear almost like monsters. At sunrise, there's a monster roll. And if during the day a character ends his move on a dwelling, We check if this dwelling matches a native's box on the monster's role line. Here, on top of the patrol's box are dwelling names: inn, chapel, house, guardhouse. The magician is in the house clearing, so yes, all the patrol stack appears on the house. And from next turn on, the magician can deal with the patrol. And also, any player that comes to the house can deal with the patrol and the soldiers that were here from the beginning of the game. And note that if another player moves to the inn, for example, the patrol doesn't go to the inn because they are not on the setup card anymore. Natives work like monsters. Once on the map, they stay on the map until regeneration at the end of each week. They work like monsters but with some differences. First, as we just saw, they appear only if the character is on their dwelling's clearing. It's not enough to be on their tile. If you want to trigger the arrival of a group of natives, you must actually stand on their dwelling. And once on the map, they don't move. The only way to make them move, as we will see just after that, is to hire them, to pay them to work for you. As long as nobody hires them, natives on the board stay where they are and never moves in whatever circumstances. Let's consider the same example but a few days later. The soldiers and the patrol are at the house. The witch ends her day in the second clearing of the Cursed Valley. If the monster roll is 2, nothing happens even if the woodfolk could appear in the house, because the witch is not in the house. Being in the tile is not enough. And if the monster roll is 3, the patrol doesn't move as a monster would have done, because natives never move. Unlike monsters, natives are not enemies that appear in your way as an obstacle between you and your goal. No, natives are opportunities for trade and cooperation. So, as a character, you are not avoiding them, you are actively looking for them, and knowing that, here is the kind of plan you can make. Here is the sorcerer. We can see on his card that the lancers are his allies. All characters have preferred links to one native faction or another, and so the sorcerer is looking for his allies. They can be in the chapel or in either of the two campfires. The chapel is a little too far. He moves to the closest wood style and tries his luck. At the end of his day, he flips the yellow cheat. It's a stink W. The large campfire appears in clearing 5 because dwelling always appear in clearing 5. And now the sorcerer can just stay here and wait for a monster roll of 4 that will make the lancers appear on the large campfire. That is 1 chance out of 6 every day. It's slow, isn't it? But wait, on the large campfire, the Bashkars and the company can also appear, and both factions are friendly to the sorcerer, so it's not so bad, and this gives 1 chance out of 2 every day to make a friend appear or an ally, and that's far better than 1 chance out of 6. Now let's suppose the company did appear on the large campfire, so not the sorcerer's best allies, but still good friends, and so the sorcerer happily trades with his friends. But it's day 7, and like every last day of the week, this is regeneration day. And let's suppose the monster roll for this turn is a 1. The company goes back to the setup card. Any native unit that is not currently hired by a player does go back to the setup card if its monster roll is picked up on a generation day. Even like here, if a character is on their clearing. What's funny here is that at the end of the sorcerer's turn, if he stays here, the monster roll being 1, the company appears again, but the sorcerer lost this day. It looks like a no trading on Sunday rule. Last, natives never block a character's move. Characters can freely move through natives, even unfriendly or enemy natives. Characters interact with natives only if they actually decide to end their movement on a native's clearing. Fine, some natives are your friends and you can look for them to trade. So, guess what? There is a trade activity. Seeing that her best ally, the company, just appeared on the campfire, the witch runs to trade with them. Here is her plan for the day. She just wrote the letter T at the end of her move, and at daylight, when she's on the company's clearing, she trades. Okay, but she trades what? In fact, all items in the game, all items except the player's starting personal equipment, all items are owned by one native faction or another. All items in the game start on a setup card's native faction box. And each faction has its own flavor, its own field of trade. Let's start with weapons. All light weapons are sold by the soldiers at the house. All medium weapons by the guard at the guardhouse. All heavy weapons by the order at the chapel. All bows, light and medium, are sold by the woodfolk, wherever it is. And all spears are sold by the lancers. Then the armors. Pieces of armor, breastplates, shields and helmets are spread between the company, the patrol, the guard and the soldiers. The two only full suits of armor in the game are owned by the order. And you must also notice that every time an armor is destroyed, because armors are the only pieces of equipment that can be destroyed, the armor token goes back to the setup card. Helmets go to the soldiers, breastplates go to the guards, and full suits of armor go to the order. Destroyed shields are forever lost. And finally, the horses. We will see in a future video what they are useful for, but just know for now that all pack horses are sold by the rogues, all ponies by the bashkars, and all war horses by the order. All this information is found on the setup card, but keep in mind that every native group doesn't sell anything you could want. If you want to buy a bow, for example, you have no choice but to find the woodfolk and trade with them. Also, each native faction owns 2 small treasures, and that means that you are not required to take risk by looting treasures locations, because 18 treasures can just be bought from native factions. It is often a good idea to begin the game by knocking at natives' doors to see what they have to sell. The witch makes a halt at the large campfire where she finds the company. She planned a trade activity, so how does it unfold? When you carry out a trade activity, first you must choose whether you buy or you sell. You cannot do both with only one activity, you must choose. Here, the witch decides to buy, and the first thing she can do is to look at all items the company is selling. She already knows the pieces of armor, this is public information, but she can now peek at both small treasures. This is secret. She doesn't and cannot show them to the other players. The company's small treasures are the sacred statue and a vial of healing. And then the witch must choose what item she wants to buy. Only one. For one trade activity, a character can buy one item. The treasure's price are written in bold types at the bottom right of the cards, 10 and 2 gold coins. And for all items other than treasure cards, there is this general price list. In red, the basic price of every item in gold coins. Let's suppose the witch has 10 gold coins. That's what each player gets at the beginning of the game, so in theory, here she can buy whatever she wants. Note that the sacred statue is a great treasure with a red dot. Great treasures are scarce among small treasures, but here is one. That means that for 10 gold coins, the witch can fulfill one victory condition if she chose great treasures as one of her goals at the beginning of the game. Here, let's say she chooses to buy the shield. Now she must bargain. And this is done by rolling 2 dice, keeping only the highest, on the meeting table. The witch looks on the ally column because she's allied to the company. She rolls a 3, that is not so bad, but the result is times 2. The deal is done, but at a double price. And thus, the shield costs 14 gold coins. The witch cannot afford it, and she doesn't buy anything this time. And note that even if she can afford it, the witch can always decide not to buy the shield. The result of the trading is never mandatory. Okay, now let's see all possible results. The most common result, regardless of the column, is a multiplier that increases the price to pay. And so, as you see, the only way to pay the standard price is to get a dice roll of 2 on the ally column. And so, never consider that the price you will pay is the one on the general price list. Always consider to double or triple it. If you badly dream of a thrusting sword, you'd better get 12 or 18 gold pieces. If the result is 0, no deal. The native faction doesn't want to sell. If you roll a 1 on a column neutral or friendly, you re-roll immediately on the next column to the right. But if you get a 6 on column neutral, you re-roll to the left on column unfriendly. Now, if you deal with people that don't like you, you risk the block result. Easy to understand, they block you. Your turn ends, and that's all. As we will see very soon, if this happens, you also take the risk of being attacked in the evening. But for the moment, let's say you are just blocked without any further consequences. Finally, you can get from your counterpart an insult or a challenge. In both cases, you get a choice. Whether you lose 5 points of fame or notoriety, or the natives block you like a block result. And finally, the best possible result, on a result of 1 on the ally column, the boon. Here again, a choice. You can just pay the price and get the item the same as a multiplier 1 result, or you can get the item for free, but you lose 1 level of friendship. That means that this native faction that were your ally is now just friendly. You note it on your personal pad and it lasts until the end of the game, unless you later pay what you owe them. That means doing another trade activity later without any meeting roll, just to pay the cost you should have paid the first time. You can note it on your personal pad to remember it. If you do that, your friendliness level with this faction goes back to ally. Okay, you know the meeting table, but you don't know yet how to use it at its best. Let's go on. First, you can easily understand that you will never get a good price with a native faction that is neither your ally nor your friend. So, if you are the witch, you should trade with the company, the Bashkars, and that's pretty much it. Both these factions are not on the map at the beginning of the game, and you will probably lose a lot of time waiting for them to appear as we just saw. And even if they are in your clearing, you will just be able to buy from them some pieces of armors and ponies, and of course their small treasures. And now you understand that what makes a good trader is not some dice bonus or extra power, but just a good network of relationships. The captain, for example, is friend to the soldiers and the guard, who both are on the map at the beginning of the game and own a great deal of weapons and armors. And this makes the captain a better trader. On the enemy, unfriendly or neutral column, lower than the friendly column, don't even try to buy anything. Okay, but so, what are these columns made for? More on that in a few moments. Note that if a faction is not on your character's card at all, that means that your relationship level is neutral. Fine, let's see now the second possible choice, how to sell. Selling is far easier than buying. With the same T activity, you can sell as many items as you want, not only one. You sell them at market price, the price on the general price list, no multiplication here, no negotiation, and so no roll on the meeting table. And that's it. Note that you have to search for friendly or ally factions in order to buy items, but you can sell to anybody. No meeting roll, no risk of being blocked or worse. Let's see on an example. The Black Knight is back from some perilous adventure. His shield is damaged, but he brings with him a legendary treasure, the Sacred Grail. He didn't choose great treasures as his goal, but he's looking for fame, notoriety, and gold. Also, he would like to buy a new weapon better than his mace. He could go to the company because they are his ally, but in fact, he would gain nothing from them because mainly he wants to sell his sacred grail, and in order to sell, the level of friendliness does not count. Moreover, he looks for a better weapon and the company does not sell weapons, so he goes to meet the order at the chapel. He planned 2 trade activities, the first one to sell, the second one to buy because he cannot do both with only one activity. First trade, he sells the sacred grail to the order. The order is not in his network of relationships, that means that the order is neutral for him, but for selling it does not matter. The sacred grail's price is of 12 gold pieces. Fine, but selling this item is even more profitable than that. First, owning the sacred grail counts as a notoriety loss of 25 points. Thus, selling it is a way to get rid of the item and to regain the lost notoriety. Also, there is a fame reward linked to this item. Look, every time there is a fame gain in brackets with the name of a faction, that means that this fame is gained only if this item is sold to this particular faction. Here, this is perfect because the naming faction is the Order. By selling the Sacred Grail to the Order, the Black Knight earns 50 points of fame. That's huge. And that's a common strategy in Magic Realm, hunting for prestigious items and selling them back to their owners. The Sacred Grail goes to the Order's box on the setup card. An item is never lost. If later another character comes to the Order's clearing, he can buy the Sacred Grail for 12 gold, its base price, with any meeting table multipliers. Note that if anyone buys the Sacred Grail from the Order, he loses the 50 points of fame because this item is especially linked to the Order. That's what the name and the brackets mean. And note also that this has nothing to do with the character's network of relationship. Okay, so the Black Knight earns 12 gold, 50 fame and avoids the loss of 25 notoriety. But remember, his plan was to buy a better weapon, a heavy weapon from the Order that sells them. So, why not a greatsword? Its base price is 10, so the Black Knight could think he has enough with 12 gold, but don't forget that you need at least 2 or 3 times that value if you want to have the slightest chance on the meeting table, especially with a neutral relationship with the Order. Okay, so how to find more money? With a single trade activity, the Black Knight can sell as many items as he wants. So, he can also sell his mace, which will be useless after buying a new weapon, and why not his shield and his suit of armor. The mace is worth 6, the armor 17. And what about the shield? It is damaged. Each piece of armor has a reduced price when it is damaged. Of course, this price is never used when you buy, only when you sell. You cannot buy a damaged armor. The damaged shield is worth 5 gold, for a total of 40 gold, 4 times the cost of a greatsword. Perfect. But this plan involves a significant risk. When the Black Knight will perform his second trade activity to buy the greatsword, he will have to make a meeting roll, and if he misses it, he won't make the deal, he won't buy the sword, and he will end up with nothing. No mace, no armor, no shield, so luckily he has another solution with far less risk. With his first trade activity, he only sells the Sacred Grail for 12 gold. Then he goes on with his second trade activity where he will buy the greatsword. And he can do that with only 12 gold because when you buy any item, you can always pay with other items instead of gold. So you don't have to sell your items before buying. Fine, now the Black Knight must roll on the meeting table. On the neutral column, his relationship level with the Order, he can only hope for times 3 or times 4 with roughly 1 chance out of 4. And a 30% risk to roll again on the unfriendly column. That's no good, but he has one last trick up his sleeve. He can buy drinks. Whenever you must roll on the meeting table, you can always buy drinks before you roll. Buying drinks means paying 1 gold coin for each native token in the faction you are trading with. And for this cost, you can roll 1 column to the right on the meeting table. Here, there are 4 members of the order in the clearing, so the Black Knight pays 4 gold to roll on the friendly column instead of neutral. Note that you can buy only 1 run of drinks. The Black Knight cannot pay 8 gold to shift 2 columns. No, 1 column shift is the maximum. So, he rolls on the friendly column, he gets a 3, and he can buy his great swords for 20 gold. After the drinks, he has 8 gold left. He can pay the rest with items instead of gold. He has no choice but to sell his suit of armor for 17 gold, plus 3 gold is 20. And voila, no need to lose his mace or his damage shield if he doesn't need more gold. Note that when paying with items, you cannot make change. You cannot, for example, pay 5 gold with an 8 gold item and get 3 gold as change. Now a few last things about trade. First, it can happen that a faction of natives becomes scattered. Then, trading is only possible with its leader. The leader in each faction is the token with the letters HQ for headquarters. All items in the faction's box are always considered as a part of the leader's token. If the leader dies and if he is removed from the map, no trade is possible with this faction anymore. Finally, 2 little tricks. First, don't forget that you can declare a trade only to get a glimpse at the faction's 2 treasures. But beware, because you must declare that you buy before picking the treasures, you must roll on the meeting table, so don't do that with unfriendly or enemy factions. Second trick, if you own a damaged piece of armor, with 2 trade activities you can sell it to a faction, then buy it back right away. The piece of armor becomes good order as soon as you sell it, so you buy it repaired. This is how you can repair a damaged armor. There is no trade activity between player characters. Characters can freely rearrange their belongings if they share the same clearing just before any activity during daylight or at the end of evening. They can rearrange items, but they can also exchange gold, so they can trade without needing to plan any trade activity. Okay, native factions can trade items, but not only. They can also sell their sheer military strength, like mercenaries, and this is the higher activity. Very close to the trade activity, you just write the letters HR in your plan for the day when you share your clearing with a group of natives. This time, no need to deal with the group leader. You deal with whoever is in your clearing, leader or not. The rule is that you must deal with all natives from the chosen faction that are on your clearing. Either you hire them all or you hire nobody. These native fighters have a price, their wages, and this price depends on the type of every token, not the faction, but the type, that is, the silhouette on the token. The Black Knight is on the same clearing as his friends, the soldiers. The soldiers group is made of 4 tokens, 1 crossbowman, 2 pikemen, and the leader, 1 great swordsman, for a total wage of 10 gold. The Black Knight cannot split the group. Either he pays 10 for them all, or he pays nothing. And of course, 10 is the base price. The Black Knight must now roll on the meeting table, and that is exactly as if he was buying an item. He ends up getting a cost multiplier, he pays and hires the group, or he doesn't pay and gets nothing. He can buy drinks to shift 1 column right. And that's it. If the player pays, he hires the native groups for 14 days. So, for the following 14 turns, these units will move and fight with him. At any time during this period, he can plan another HR activity, roll again on the meeting table, and add 14 more days at the end of the term. Hiring the whole soldiers faction, as we just saw, cost 10 gold. Here are the costs for the other factions. Of course, you cannot hire native fighters that are already hired by another player. And at the end of every week, hired natives don't regenerate. They stay at your service, whatever the monster roll. Okay, you pay them, and what can they do for you in return? Mainly you hirelings, that's how we call them. Your hirelings will follow you and fight for you whenever you need. They are usually strong warriors. Each type of native token has its own vulnerability value, from light to tremendous. It is not linked to the size of their counter like it is for monsters. Some natives wear an armor which cancels one sharpness star, as all armors do. They all have combat and maneuver values on their token, and they can fight with a reach depending on their weapon's length. We will see very soon exactly how they fight. Just note also that native bowmen are quite good and roll only one die instead of two on the missile table. Okay, when you move with your hirelings, your own personal troop, you can also use them to carry items that you cannot carry by yourself. Each type of them has a carrying capacity equal to its vulnerability. And to make the picture complete, it can happen that you kill a native unit either because it is another player's hireling or just if it is unhired. Then you earn notoriety. You never gain fame to kill natives. But you get also gold. Instead of dealing with them, you are free to kill them like monsters. Magic Realm is a game where you can choose your own way, your morality and your destiny. One last word before closing this screen. You see that the Order and the Rogues are not included in the price list. And that's because people from the Order and the Rogues must be hired on an individual basis, one by one. The highest numbered first and their leader last. One HR activity for each single token, while the other groups are hired all together, one HR activity for the whole stack. Fine, now let's suppose that the magician just hired 2 rogues with 2 HR activities, and from that point on, basically, all a hireling can do is to follow its character. Every day at sunrise, before the monster roll, each player must declare what his hirelings will do, and all what they can do is to follow a character or do nothing. The player just put their tokens under the character they follow, and in most of the cases, that is under his own token. Then, during daylight, when it's the character's turn, the 2 hirelings follow their character and move with him. They follow the same plan, they share his hidden status. If he hides, they hide. Native fighters use their token's dark side to show that they are hidden. Native fighters don't search. If a character does the search activity, his hirelings don't help in any way. The character may drop off some of his followers along the way, but beware, this ends the hireling's movement and triggers monsters. For example, the magician just wants to leave the tile. He moves, but he decides to drop off one of his rogue hirelings in the first clearing. By doing so, this hireling's turn ends and he triggers the tile's cheat. And with the proper monster roll, it can trigger a dragon on its lair. And when the magician goes on with his plan with his remaining hireling, they are both blocked by the dragon. Now, next turn, he wants to go the other way. He enters his hireling's clearing, but he cannot pick him up, because a hireling can only declare he follows a character in his clearing at sunrise. During a movement at daylight, it is too late. And so, the only solution to pick up a hireling is to stop and end the day in his clearing. For the same reason, it is not possible to hire a native and move with him right away, on the same turn, because he must wait for the next sunrise to declare he is following the character. Don't forget that native fighters cannot block, so it's useless to drop off your hirelings on clearings. They won't be able to block other players. They won't do anything. The best way to use their prized assistants is to keep them with you until there is a fight, when they become very useful. Okay, so we are all looking forward to seeing how they do in battle, but just before that, we must talk about the most special member of any native faction, their leader. Every native faction has a leader, a token like any other, but with the letters HQ for headquarters. A leader is hired like any other native fighter, and often it is hired with them, as he starts the game in the same stack, in the same dwelling. This is not true for the Order and the Rogues, where tokens are hired one by one. Being at the bottom of the stack, the Orders and the Rogues leaders are the last ones recruited. And a hired leader is much more like a character than a hired regular native fighter. As soon as he is hired, the leader gets his own personal pad, and the player who controls him writes his plans for the day at birdsong, just as for his main character. A hired leader can own items and gold, he can search and check discovery on his own, he can do whatever a character can do, he can even trade and hire other native fighters, and they count as if they were hired by the player. During daylight, he gets his own attention sheet and his own place in the order of players. The leader gets gold and treasures, but he doesn't record fame nor notoriety. All fame and notoriety he earns are directly added to his hiring character's personal pad, and this is true for all hirelings, leaders or not. So, fame and notoriety go directly to the hiring player's own prestige on his own personal pad. But gold, items and treasures don't. They stay on the leader's pad and must be transferred to the character's inventory as usual at the beginning of any activity or at the end of evening. Beware, you remember, as a character you can only trade with the leader of any faction. And that means that in some way the native leader is carrying all the items that are in his faction's box on the setup card. So for example, if my wizard hires all the woodfolk natives, and that includes the woodfolk leader, does he gain the right to use the 2 treasures and all the bows in the game that are the woodfolk's leader property? No, not at all. In fact, that is even the opposite. Nobody can trade with a hired leader, not even the character who hired him. And so, all his faction's items are put aside for the duration of the hiring. In our example, for the next 14 days, thanks to the wizard, nobody can buy bows in the Magic Realm. And so, there is an unbridgeable split between the leader's faction items that are intangible and the items the leader collects during his hiring period. These items belong in a way to the hiring character, who can just take them when he shares the same clearing. If at the end of the 14 days period the leader still owns some collected items, they go to his faction's items that can later on be sold through a trade activity. If a leader is killed, he is no longer hired, of course, and he abandons all his items on his clearing, his collected items and his faction's item all together in the same stack. Fine, now you can take a deep breath. Here is all you know about natives. Here is how natives behave. First, native groups appear on the map a bit like monsters. Then, when characters know where they are, they start trading with them, and when they have enough money, they try to hire them. Once hired, natives become much more active. They follow their hiring character in order mainly to help him in case of a battle. Leaders are a little bit special because they act roughly as new bonus characters. They write their own plan and do activities. But in most cases, you will just keep all your hired natives together, following you and helping you to kill monsters and gather treasures. So perhaps it would be more convenient if the leader also could follow you without having to write lines and lines of activities. Well, it's possible, and this is the follow activity. In the beginning, this activity was made for hired leaders. If you have a hired leader on the same clearing than your character, and you just want that he follows him as if he was a regular native fighter, you just write on his plan for the day an F letter followed by your character's name. At sunrise, when all follow situations are announced, the wizard player reveals his woodfolk leader's plan, he follows the wizard. And from then on, the leader does everything that the character he follows does. And it works as for any regular native fighter. He shares the hide activity results and he doesn't help for the search activity, but he shares the discoveries, if any, because he has a personal pad where he can record discoveries. For all other activities, nothing happens. Okay, that's convenient, but now that the follow activities has been introduced, guess what? Even characters can use it. For example, if the wizard and the witch decide to cooperate for a while, the witch can just plan to follow the wizard. Then, at sunrise, the witch reveals it. And at sunlight, she doesn't play on her own, she follows the wizard when it is his turn to play. She shares all the wizard's activities and results, and because she is a character with her weapons and her fight, move and magic cheats, she also shares the alert and rest activities. And if you take the logic one step further, you got the idea that a character or even a hireling can follow, but with bad intentions. Here, the witch could be not the good friend of the wizard, but his opponent, wishing to follow him to steal his secrets, his discoveries, or to share his clearing in the evening in order to fight and kill him right away. And she can do that with exactly the same follow activity. Of course, the wizard cannot just drop her off as he could with his own hirelings, but if he becomes hidden, he can decide not to share the subsequent activities. So, the witch won't get the discovery and she won't rest. Her follow activity stops at the moment the wizard becomes hidden and decides not to allow her to follow him. And the same is true with hired leader or even with regular non-leader hirelings. At sunrise, if one of your hirelings is on the same clearing that another player's character, you can declare that your hireling will follow this character, even of course if he doesn't agree. You put your hireling token beneath the character's token and he will follow him during sunlight wherever he will go. By doing so, your goal can be, for example, to be sure to have your fighter at the end of the day in the same clearing than your opponent in order to attack him. So we can say that whether you hired native fighters to follow yourself or to follow your opponents, their main use is to fight, to defend yourself or to attack your opponent. And it even happens that unhired natives decide by themselves to attack a character, or that a character attacks unhired natives as if they were monsters. At the beginning of every evening, if a character is in the same clearing as unhired natives, this character must roll on the meeting table. The goal of this roll is to check if these unhired natives spontaneously attack this character. All the natives from the order are gathered at the chapel. The Witch King and his famous skull pants, in a quite careless mood, ends his turn on the chapel. Why careless? Because the order is the Witch King's worst enemy. Even if he doesn't interact with them, even if he neither trades nor hires, at the beginning of the evening he must roll on the meeting table and on the worst column, enemy. And if he gets a block result, the order's natives immediately attack him like monsters will do. Any other result has no effect. Any other result but insult and challenge that can end up in a block result depending on the player's choice. Another example so that you understand exactly the interaction mechanism with unhired natives. The pilgrim is on the road. Let's say he has some gold in his pockets and he thinks it could be time to buy a better weapon than his old staff. His plan for the day is to enter the house, trade with the soldiers, then go on his journey. Let's see what happens. Daylight. He enters the house. he declares he wants to buy a short sword. As always, when a character buys, he must roll on the meeting table. Column neutral because soldiers are not on the Pilgrim's Relationship Network. He decides not to buy drinks because this trade is not so important for him. If he gets a times 3 or times 4 result, okay, he will buy the sword. If not, never mind, he will keep his old staff. But he rolls a 6, trouble. He must roll again on the unfriendly column. A 6 again, block. The soldiers block him. His turn is over. He stops the day here in the house. Then comes the evening. The pilgrim starts his evening in the same clearing than unhired natives. So he must do a roll on the meeting table. Column neutral again. And this time, if he gets a 6 and a 6 again, and that's a 9% chance, he will be attacked by 4 soldiers that will be very tough opponents for a man with only a staff. And you understand also how it can be worth it to accept to lose 5 fame or notoriety on a result of insult or challenge. And I would say in such a situation, it is far better to pay drinks, 4 gold in our example, to roll on the friendly column and be 100% sure not to fight the soldiers. Okay, that's when unhired natives attack some character. But the opposite is also possible. The Black Knight is on the same clearing than the Woodfolk. He rolls on the meeting table, but even if the roll is passed and the Woodfolk don't attack him, he can decide to attack the Woodfolk. If he kills the Woodfolk's leader, he gets notoriety but also all his items from the setup card. Wrath, Slaughter and Plunder, you can do that in the Magic Realm. Okay, now we stop beating around the bush. There are plenty of opportunities to fight with native factions, and it's high time to see how it works. And first, 2 basic rules that make things easier. Unhired natives behave exactly like monsters. So, no new rules for them. If a native fighter was not hired by any player, it fights like a monster. Go and see my previous video, nothing new here. And hired leaders act just as regular hired natives. Even if during daylight they act as characters, with their own plan, their own activities, their own personal pad, in the evening they fight as regular hired natives, not as characters. They don't have move or fight cheat, they don't fatigue, they don't incur wounds. That being said, let's see how does a regular native fight. You remember the battle sequence from my previous video. From now on, I suppose that you know it and I will focus on what's new about native fighters. As you remember, a battle is fought in rounds, and for every round you just follow the battle sequence step by step. And each round starts with the characters being able to lure monsters to their melee section. Well, native fighters can do the same. The difference being that a character can lure as many monsters as he wants, but one native fighter can only lure one monster. Fine and convenient because that means that your hirelings can distract monsters from you, so you can attack them without any risk. You remember when a character lures a monster, he takes the monster on his melee section. So, how does it work with hired natives? Do they have their own melee section? Yes, there is indeed a simplified melee section, especially for this case, when a hired native becomes the target of a monster. This specific denizen melee section cannot be found in the original game. It has been designed by Rich Fam and can be downloaded from the Board Game Geek dedicated page. I strongly recommend you to use it, it's very convenient. So, the wizard decides that his hired woodfolk guys will lure the trolls. It can be the woodfolk leader. In combat, leaders have no special abilities, they are just like regular fighters. The native token is put on his own denizen melee section on one of the red boxes under the word denizen. At this point, the exact red box doesn't matter. And then the lured monster is put on an attack box, because when someone lures a monster, that means that he becomes this monster's target and the monster becomes his attacker. Okay, this native fighter lures one troll. But if you want to lure the second troll, you need a second hired native and its special melee section, because one native can lure only one monster. And if there are several characters in the battle, luring, as always, is done in player order. Note that you can even lure a monster from another player's melee section to distract the monster and allows this other character to flee, for example. Or you can lure to steal a target from an opponent character in the hope of earning fame and notoriety. In this other example, the wizard can ask to his woodfolk hirelings to lure 2 goblins. Not more. The woodfolk that has already a troll attacking him on his denizen melee section cannot lure another monster. This is 1 monster per hireling, not 1 per round. Then, on the monster assignment phase, all remaining monsters, all monsters without a target, are randomly assigned to characters. At this point, if a hired native has not lured and is still himself unassigned, he cannot randomly become a monster's target, because random target selection is only against player characters. Here, because the wizard is the only character in the clearing, he gets all the remaining monsters, 1 per red box, as we saw in the previous video. Note that this time we use a character melee section, and on this melee section, attacking monsters are put on the red boxes. Denizen melee section and character melee sections are not designed the same way. On a character melee section, you never put the character's token itself, only fight and move cheats. Characters, targets and attackers being in the red boxes. On a denizen melee section, red boxes are for the owner of the melee section, the own hireling's token, and this shows whose melee section it is. Take your time to study these sheets, it's very important you feel comfortable with them. Okay, next, players must deploy their native hirelings. Those who are not yet attacked. Not being attacked means not on his own denizen melee section. In our example, 2 woodfolk fighters are on their own denizen melee section because they lured monsters. So, they are being attacked and they cannot be deployed. Only the remaining unassigned hireling can. If, for example, another character, the witch, is in the clearing, the remaining woodfolk fighter can attack this other character. His token is put on his target's melee section on a red box. A woodfolk fighter on the witch character melee section means that the woodfolk fighter is attacking the witch. Of course, this is not mandatory, you are not bound to attack anyone. Your hireling can just stay unassigned out of the battle. This hireling will not fight during this round. But he can also attack a monster, any monster, even a monster that is already assigned to another target. In our example, the wizard player can ask his last unassigned hireling to attack one of the 3 goblins on his own melee section. In this case, the attack denizen is the monster, not the hireling, so we need a denizen melee section, but for the monster. The monster is the attacked denizen on its own melee section, and the hireling is the attacker. And so, if for example you compare these 2 denizen melee sections, it starts to become very interesting. The left one is the woodfolk hirelings melee section, where the hireling is attacked by a goblin. The right one is the goblin's melee section, where the goblin is attacked by a woodfolk hireling. Both situations are very similar. From the wizard's point of view, in both cases, the goblin doesn't attack him. The first case is the result of the hireling luring the monster. The second one, the hireling being deployed to attack the monster. And both read the character of his monster, because a monster on its own melee section always attacks its attacking denizen in return. Okay, I know that you think it seems convoluted, but no. In fact, this is an elegant way to organize battles and to keep in mind who attacks who in the most intricate situations. So, take your time to understand it. When you are comfortable with it, combat in the magic realm becomes a piece of cake. Some more examples to settle things in your mind. You already know this first one. A hireling lured a monster, so the hireling is the target of the monster. He cannot deploy nor lure anymore. If nobody comes to help, he will stay like this and fight until he or the monster dies. Example number 2. A hireling was deployed to attack a monster. The monster immediately got its own melee section, and let's say the situation is very close to the first one, with the difference that the monster is defending. We will see in a moment that it can change the battle resolution. Example 3. The same as before, but now 2 hirelings are deployed to attack the same monster. Note that during deployment, the player can organize his attack as he sees fit. He can, for example, put both hirelings in the same direction of attack. Okay, but here is the problem. As we know, the monster attacks its attacking denizen in return, but there are 2 of them. So the rule is the monster attacks the last fighter who was deployed to attack it. And to visualize the difference, the hireling that will be attacked in return is put in the monster's target row. Both hirelings will attack the monster they were deployed against, and the monster will attack the last of them in return. Example 4, this one is tricky. Let's take the first example back. A denizen did lure a monster. The monster is attacking back the denizen, but a second denizen is deployed to attack the monster. As soon as it is attacked, the monster is put on its own denizen melee section, freeing its previous target that is not attacked anymore. The monster instead attacks the second denizen who deployed against it. If you want to attack a single monster with 2 hirelings, you must deploy both of them. Luring is not enough. And if you're wondering what's the point of luring, you will understand very soon, but let me tell you, in a nutshell, luring is defending while deploying is attacking, and your fighter always has better control when defending. And finally, to blow your mind, the Amazon is fighting against a dragon and a giant spider. She's currently aiming at the spider, which is her target. She cannot kill the dragon because of its armor that cancels a sword sharpness star. She is fast enough not to be undercut by the dragon, so she can count on her breastplate to protect her. But the spider can destroy the breastplate. Luckily, she has 2 rogue hirelings ready to help. Here is what she does. First, the rogue swordsman could lure the spider to his own melee section to distract it from the Amazon. But because the Amazon wants to allocate both her hirelings to the spider, she waits for the deployment phase. So first, she deploys the swordsman. The spider does not attack the Amazon anymore, but the swordsman instead. And note that the Amazon's attention sheet stays on the spider. The Amazon still aims toward the spider. Then, the Amazon deploys the Axeman to attack the spider. And being the last one to be deployed against the spider, the Axeman will be the spider's target. A monster always attacks the last opponent being deployed against it. During the resolution step, the spider will strike the Axeman, who will attack it in return. The swordsman will attack the spider without being attacked. The dragon will strike the Amazon, and the Amazon will attack the spider on which she put her attention marker. And that's it. Now trust me, from now on I promise the rest is simple. The encounter phase is not for natives. Hired fighters have no move or fight sheets, they have no belongings to rearrange, so they have nothing to do during the encounter phase. Note that it means that natives cannot flee from combat, and if a character flees during the encounter phase, that means he abandons his hirelings, and the combat goes on without the character. Then, characters can still pick another target. They just put their attention cheat on another monster, character or denizen's token. Nothing changes here. Next, two successive phases. The battle plan phase, then the monster positioning and tactics change phase. So, the question is, can a hireling choose his battle plan at will, like a character, or does he change randomly, like a monster? The rule is simple, he can freely change his battle plan only if he is on his own melee section. So, on his own melee section, he is in a red box and during the battle plan, he can choose another red box and or flip his counter to the other side. Other natives, those on characters or other denizens melee sections, are like monsters. They can randomly change box with the repositioning die roll, then they can randomly change tactics by flipping their token on a dice roll. And then, resolution is computed as before, nothing changes here. Characters, monsters and hirelings attack order depends on the length of their weapon, then on their attack speed. A strike hits if it undercuts its target's maneuver or if it matches its direction. Then damages, wounds and fatigue. Hirelings are like monsters, they don't fatigue, they don't incur wounds. And that's it, you know how to fight with hirelings. Finally, the battle is over after 2 rounds of inaction or when one side is totally eliminated. All fame and notoriety gained by hirelings go to their character's earnings, even if he is not in the same clearing. Beware, hireling doesn't have any kill queue, they just give to their hiring character bland fame and notoriety without any multiplier. If a character's hireling is killed, the character loses his hireling's notoriety value. So, hirelings are not cannon fodder. When you hire fighters, you become responsible for their lives. Unless you didn't take notoriety as a goal and don't care. Fine, now with both battle sequences, the standard one and the one for the hirelings, you get all the combat possibilities. But there is still a special consideration, let's call it a taboo topic, that perhaps is not so clear in your mind, battles between player characters. The infamous PvP, when your lifelong friend decides in the middle of a battle to turn against you, squinting at your riches, your treasures, your gold. Basically, player versus player combat doesn't change anything. It uses the same combat sequence and we will discover it on an example that will lead us through most of battle mechanisms and that will be a good opportunity to make the most difficult parts as clear as possible. On the rune style, 2 hidden characters are sharing the same clearing, the captain and the Amazon with her 2 hired rogues. These hirelings are also hidden, they show their dark side up, hirelings like characters are flipped when hidden. In the same clearing, there are also 2 monsters, a medium goblin with a spear and a heavy giant snake. And before deciding anything, let's study the forces at work. Let's look at both sides of each denizen, let's also look at their vulnerabilities. Monsters' vulnerabilities depend on the size of their token. Hirelings are found on the hirelings table. The Amazon has a short sword, the swordsman just bought a new mace. So everybody can kill the goblin, but only the captain can kill the snake with a heavy fight cheat and its striking bonus. The bowman can also kill it, but with a little luck on the missile table, knowing that hired bowmen roll only 1 die instead of 2, and that gives him a 1 out of 3 chance to kill the snake. The assassin and the Amazon cannot kill the snake because of its armor that cancels their sharpness stars. The Amazon has no armor, but the swordsman has still his breastplate and his shield. So, the Amazon offers the captain to cooperate as they are used to. She kills the goblin, he kills the snake, and everybody's fine. Let's go. Note that if all characters and hirelings stay hidden, there is no combat at all, but this is not what players have decided. First, the lure step. The bowman will try to strike the snake, but he wants to be sure to get his dark side up because it is the only side that gives him a chance to kill the snake. Okay, a denizen does not change tactics when he is on his own denizen melee section. So, the bowman must stay on his own melee section, and to achieve that, he has to lure. So, this is the lure step, and the Amazon declares that her bowman lures the giant snake. That means the bowman lures the snake to attack him. So the bowman is the defender and he is put on a red box on his own denizen melee section. The assassin waits for the deployment phase. Monster's random assignment step. The snake is already assigned to a melee section, but the goblin is not yet assigned. He should be assigned randomly to a character, but both characters are hidden, so it is assigned to the only possible target in the clearing, the bowman. Why the bowman? Why not the assassin? This is a tricky part of the game. I'm sure you will like this one. Hirelings have two sides, like any monsters do. But out of any battle during daylight, these sides are used to show if the hireling is hidden or not. Light side unhidden, dark side hidden. And this is true as long as the hireling is not on a melee section. But on a melee section, a hireling is necessarily unhidden. The moment he lures or deploys, he becomes unhidden. And then from this moment, his side shows his battle tactics, like a monster. So here, the bowman on his melee section is unhidden, but he shows his dark side up because this is the tactics he chose. While the assassin is still hidden out of the combat. And yes, the goblin is assigned to the only unhidden denizen in the clearing, the bowman. That being said, now if the goblin stays here, that makes two monsters against the bowman and that doubles the chance of seeing the bowman hit and killed. And the Amazon needs her bowman because he is the only one able to kill the snake. So, when it is the deployment step, the assassin declares he deploys to attack the goblin. The goblin immediately gets its own denizen melee section where it is put on defense on a red box. Encounter phase. The Amazon does nothing. The captain plays a fight cheat to alert his mace. For the moment, all is fine. Now it's time for characters to pick up their targets. Because the assassin can be randomly repositioned and can miss his target, the Amazon prefers to declare the goblin as her own target. This makes her lose her camouflage. She is now unhidden, fine. But here is the big surprise. The captain announces he prefers not to declare any target and to stay hidden. That's not what was agreed. The Amazon starts to worry, but for now she's unhidden, she's engaged in the battle, she has no choice but to fight. Battle plan. On her own melee section, the Amazon attacks the goblin. The Amazon doesn't need to play a maneuver because nobody is attacking her. Denizen's repositioning step. We must roll for all denizens not on their own melee section, the assassin and the snake. That's the general rule, but we must also roll for all denizens that are not controlled by any player. Here, this is the case for the goblin. Easy to remember, if nobody controls a denizen, nobody can decide its tactics, so they are random. We roll one die for each melee section, it's a 3, a 4 and a 5. Both the assassin and the snake are repositioned to box number 2, the goblin doesn't move. Then they can also change tactics, one dice roll for each box, nobody change tactics. Resolution step. Because it's round 1, we look at the weapon's length. With the greatest length, the bowman strikes first. His attack speed is 1, so faster than the snake maneuver. The bowman hits the snake. He has an L weapon with 2 sharpness stars, but the snake's armor cancels 1, so this gives medium damages. Not enough to kill the snake, but the bowman must roll on the missile table and he rolls only one die because all hired bowman rolls only one die on the missile table. He rolls a 3, no bonus, so his hit is not enough to kill the snake. Next in the order of weapons length, the goblins with his spear. But it has no attack letter on this side of its token, so it doesn't strike. Next, length 3 for the assassin and the Amazon. The one who strikes first is the fastest. Both strike with a speed of 4, so they strike simultaneously. None of them is fast enough to undercut the goblin's maneuver. The assassin misses, but the Amazon strikes in the matching direction. She hits and kills the goblin with medium damages, light +1 sharpness star. Finally, the snake with a length of 0. It is not fast enough to undercut the bowman's maneuver, and so it misses and makes no damages. End of the first round. His target being dead, the assassin is unassigned again, no fatigue. Second round of battle. The captain is still hidden, and that doesn't bode well for his plans. The Amazon starts to worry. Her only chance to kill the snake now is a good shot from her bowman. She cannot kill it herself with just her short sword. It is useless for her to attack with her assassin or her own short sword. All she could do would be to make sure the snake will attack her assassin instead of the bowman, who has to stay alive as long as possible. But beware, if the assassin lures the snake to take it on his melee section, and then the bowman deploys against the snake will automatically attack the last hireling that attacked it, so the bowman. That's absolutely not what the Amazon wants. Instead, she can wait until the deployment step and deploy his assassin to attack the snake. But then it frees her bowman, and if she deploys him against the snake, once again it ends with the snake striking the bowman. So, what does it mean? It means that because the snake did take the bowman as its target during the first round, it is not possible for the bowman to hit the snake without being himself the snake's target. Either he gets out of the snake's grip and don't shoot until next round, or he stays there, shoots, but takes the risk of being beaten in return. The Amazon decides to let the assassin out of the battle and hope that the bowman will aim right. Encounter phase. Without any opponent targeting her, the Amazon can easily flee with any move cheat, but doing so she would abandon both her hirelings because hirelings never flee from battle. So no, she stays. Again, the captain declares he stays hidden. At best, he is a coward. At worst, he has other bad intentions. Battle plan. At least the bowman is on his own melee section and can be sure to stay with his right side up. Denizens repositioning, a 6 is rolled, and this is bad because the snake goes back to the first line, just in front of the bowman. The snake doesn't change tactics. Resolution, because it's round 2, this is the fastest attack that strikes first. So this is the bowman with a lightning speed of 1. Again, the blow inflicts light damages plus 1 level of sharpness star, because the second one is cancelled by the snake's armor. That gives medium damages, not enough to kill the snake, but he must roll on the missile table and he misses again. What a nightmare for the Amazon, because this time the snake strikes in the right direction, it hits the bowman with tremendous damages that kill him instantly. Now without any target, the snake is free again on the run. Round 3, let's face it, for the Amazon, the battle is over. Neither she nor her assassin are able to do enough damages to kill the snake, and the captain has proved that he had no will to help. Here is the situation. In the next monster assignment phase, the snake will attack the Amazon because a monster always chooses a character as its target. And with a movement speed of 3, the snake will prevent the Amazon from playing her best move cheat to flee. Because remember, in order to flee during the encounter phase, you must play a move cheat faster than any monster or denizen or whatever that attacks you. That means that she cannot even flee? No, there is still a solution. At the lure step, the Amazon declares that the assassin bravely lures the snake. So, no monster assignment step, and at the encounter step, the Amazon will be able to flee with any move cheat because she has no opponent. In some way, the assassin sacrifices himself to cover the escape of his boss. But this is at this very moment that the captain decides to backstab. This is the deployment phase, and during the deployment phase, characters can charge. Charge is a way to run to a character in order to prevent him from fleeing or alerting weapon during the encounter phase. In order to charge, the captain must play a move cheat against his target, the Amazon. Then, during the ensuing encounter phase, the Amazon cannot do any action if she is unable to play a move cheat faster than the captain's charge move cheat. The charge is purely a PvP action made to hinder other characters' ability to play encounter phase actions. And thus, during the encounter phase, the Amazon cannot play her best move 3 cheat to flee the snake. The captain cannot either do any encounter step action because the charge counts as his encounter action. But he doesn't care because he alerted his weapon in a previous round, he had everything planned. Target selection. Having charged the Amazon, the captain must make her his target. No choice. Charging counts also as a target selection. And this makes him unhidden. Of course, the Amazon makes the captain her target in return. Battle plan phase, when two players are fighting each other, and in fact whenever a player asks for it, battle plans are secret. Both players choose and place their tokens, weapons, armors, fight and move cheats, secretly on their own melee section. The captain has already played a 2 fatigue star cheat during the deployment phase to charge the Amazon. This cheat counts against his limit of 2 fatigue stars per round. And voila, they are ready to fight, and they both see the big picture. The assassin is fast enough not to be undercut by the snake's attack, so he has 1 chance out of 3 to be killed each turn, and he will never kill the snake because his weapon is not strong enough. The Amazon is fast enough not to be undercut by the captain's mace with the speed of 3, so she also has a 1 chance out of 3 to be hit. And if she's hit, she's dead. And as long as the captain doesn't hit, his weapon stays alerted, giving him the same 1 chance out of 3 every turn. With her attack speed of 4, the Amazon undercuts the captain's maneuver, but because he covers all directions with medium armor, the Amazon loses her sharpness star and does light damages that are not enough even to inflict a wound. The only risk for the captain is that the snake kills the assassin and selects him randomly as its target. So I close this example here. The captain is not fully out of any risk, but his chances are big to end up as the sole survivor. The only chance for the Amazon is that 2 rounds pass without any damages that would trigger the end of the battle. Not impossible, but unlikely. Okay, finally, let's suppose the snake kills the assassin, then the captain kills the Amazon, and finally the captain kills the snake. Let's suppose that before the fight, the Amazon had her short sword, a hidden ring, she had 24 gold coins, 15 fame, and 19 notoriety. Even if she dies, she earned fame and notoriety for having killed a goblin, 1 of each. Now, because she lost her bowman and assassin, she loses their notoriety value, which are 4 plus 2 equals 6. Note that if the assassin had still been alive when the Amazon died, he would have immediately stopped being her hireling and left the battle, and she would not have lost his notoriety value. Okay, Let's see the captain now. To keep it simple, let's suppose he had 10 gold, 10 fame and 10 notoriety at the beginning of the battle. For killing the giant snake, he earns 4 fame and 4 notoriety. And then what did he gain by killing the Amazon? First, he steals all her belongings, and he gains her gold and notoriety, but no fame. There is no multiplier on notoriety, the killed character doesn't add to any kill queue as monsters do. So for the captain, finally, it was a good operation, not very friendly but profitable. In the magic realm, never forget, unlike the Amazon, what you are worth to your opponents. And if you feel valuable, don't cooperate with fighters that are stronger than you. Thankfully, there are ways to help each other rather than fight. Characters can follow each other and they can exchange goods and information. We already know, thanks to the follow activity, that characters can synchronize their actions, one following the other, with the main purpose of being sure that no monster can attack them separately. This kind of cooperation is very useful at the beginning of the game to walk the magic realm together, triggering the yellow, orange and red cheats, ready to help each other if some bad creature appears. The main problem with this kind of cooperation is that characters cannot loot together. If a character does the search activity, a character who follows him doesn't help. He doesn't roll on the search table. If the first character does a discovery, he shares this discovery with his follower. But if he loots a treasure, he keeps it for himself and his follower gets nothing. So there is a second kind of cooperation. Player can make exchanges. When they share the same clearing at the beginning of any activity or at the end of the evening, that is just about any time except in the middle of a fight, they can exchange items and gold. So, up to you to make deals with your friend. For example, I follow you as an escort, but in exchange we share all treasures we can find. Characters can exchange even if both are hidden, as long as they both agree. But no exchange if a character is blocked, so it's too late when a monster pops up and blocks you to exchange weapons and armor. Player can also exchange discoveries, but only if they stand on the clearing of this discovery. For example, if the Woods Girl and the Pilgrim share the Caverns Clearing 4, and if the Woods Girl already checked 2 discoveries, the Shrine and the Secret Passage to Clearing 1, she can share these discoveries with the Pilgrim, and she can do that only because they are actually in the clearing where both discoveries are located. The Pilgrim just checks for free both discoveries on his personal pad. In fact, the Woods Girl is just showing him the actual shrine and the actual secret passage just there in front of them. If they had been in clearing 1, she could only give him the secret passage discovery, not the shrine. Now, even if the Woods Girl doesn't want to give her discovery to the Pilgrim, if for example she walks through the secret passage while the Pilgrim stands at either end of the tunnel, he gets the discovery. This is called spying. The only way for the Woods Girl to avoid that is to be hidden when walking through the tunnel. Spying works also if a character discovers or loots a treasure location in the same clearing as another character. And now you understand the value of the Find Hidden Enemies result on the peer search table. If you end your turn in a clearing with a treasure location or some secret passage, you can search on the peer table to get the Find Hidden Enemies result and spy any use of these discoveries, even if your opponent is hidden. And that's it. You know how to deal with native factions, and you even know how to deal with your friends, the other adventurers. Because you know how to fight from my second video, you can play a fierce warrior. And now, because you know how to trade and negotiate, from this video you can play more diplomatic figures. But there is a kind of adventurer you cannot play yet, the magic users, and they will be the topic of my next video. Now get a good night's sleep and come back to me, Jean-Michel Grosjeu, I will be so happy to teach you the arcane of magic.